My topic is slightly different because I'm addressing a slightly different topic, and the topic is, can technology improve language proficiency? I think this is a crucially important question because eventually language teachers, you and me, are interested in this big question, whether and to what extent technology can be used optimally to increase, to improve the English language proficiency of our students. I am not sure if I have all the answers. I have some idea whether technology can improve proficiency. And before I share with you my ideas, I would like to give you a quiz. It's a very simple quiz. And the question is, can technology improve L2 proficiency? It's a multiple choice questions, A, B, and C. A is yes, B is no, and C is maybe. If you could put your answer in the chat box very quickly, whether it's A, B, or C, and later we'll come back to this question again and again and see whether and to what extent technology can really, really improve English language proficiency. Now, here is the outline of my presentation. I am basically looking at the relationship between technology and pedagogy. How do we use technology in language teaching, and to what extent our use of technology is informed by pedagogy? I have got here on my slides 3 different types of pedagogical theories, if you like. The first one refers to those who use technology with very minimal theoretical background or theoretical understanding. Number 2, general theory is being applied to the use of technology in the classroom. And finally, to what extent we use L2 learning principles or L2 language learning pedagogy to help us when we use technology for language teaching. Let me begin with the first one. The first one says that if we use minimal theory, it's not a bad thing, it's a good thing. At least we are using technology in today's world. I can't imagine people not using technology in today's teaching, whether you teach language or other subject matter. However, if the use of technology is not based on a very strong theory, what happens is this: you are essentially transferring, you are essentially replacing what you normally do in the classroom and use technology in place of what you normally do in the classroom. So if you've been teaching grammar in the same old way, for example, trying to explain what subjunctive clause is, or some other grammatical features of the language in a very discrete manner, and then you turn that into one where you use technology to present the same kind of information using the same kind of methodology, then chances are you're not doing a good job. So this is the case of a very simple replacement or substitution. You may be using the PowerPoint slides with some hyperlinks, for example, and you may be using web-based activities or web-based tasks, but the basic theory behind the design of the tasks are essentially based on the old theories of language learning or the old theories of learning in general. You may be wondering why some people are using technology with very minimal background, with very minimal pedagogical principles behind the use of technology. I can think of 3. The first one, maybe you are a new user. Maybe you've just started teaching and you're still trying to find your footing in terms of how you could best use technology for language teaching purposes. I think that is very common. Number 2, time is again a very important factor. Maybe you don't have time because the teaching commitment, the teaching curriculum is so much that you don't have really much time to use or to learn how to use technology in the classroom. The other one is you have no choice because it's something that is dictated from the higher up, the principals or your head of department. You simply have to do it. And because of that, you just use technology just for the sake of using technology. Number three, I hope it doesn't happen to many people. A small number of people have this so-called fixed mindset. These people may think that, well, I am not good at learning new things. I am, who I am, and I don't think I need to learn in order to grow. This is an interesting idea that was developed by a psychologist from the US, Carol Dweck, who talks about growth mindset and fixed mindset. I'm very sure that many people in the audience are those that have growth mindset, who are willing to learn and develop new ideas or learn new ideas. Okay, again, my question to you, if this is what happens if you use technology with very small, very minimal theoretical basis, then the same question to you is, can technology improve second language proficiency? I want your answer again in the chat box. Yes, no, or maybe. And then later on we compare our responses. Yes, no, or maybe. Okay, time now for me to move on to the next one, to the next point that I want to get across. I'm sure there are a lot of people who use technology and their use is fundamentally informed by general learning theories. Let me say that again, general learning theories. Now, this is a good thing to do. When you teach, it doesn't matter what you do, it doesn't matter what you teach, you will need to know and understand really well general theories of learning. Now, I have some here on my slide. Learning theories say, a lot of learning theory says that motivation is important. If you use technology in order to engage your students, to get them more excited, more interested in learning, I think you're doing a good job, because then your students become more excited about learning. So the use of game-based learning, for example, is very popular, and technology is particularly good for that purpose. That is a very good thing to do. You're using games, for example, and other applications in order to get the students to be more interested and more motivated in learning. The other one is personalization. I think this is something that is important in education, and also technology has a lot of affordances that make it possible for us to personalize, to customize learning to the individual needs of our students. But Jati earlier on mentioned, for example, that we can create items in order to personalize the kind of questions that we want to ask our students. Another important idea in the theory of education is the importance of feedback, the importance of giving timely feedback in particular. And again, technology is there available for you. Mentimeter, for example, is very popular, and that can provide immediate feedback in terms of how well you've been teaching the students, in terms of whether or not you want to make changes in the middle of your lesson or at the end of the lesson. So these are three big ideas in education that may have to be applied when you use technology for teaching purposes. I have three more examples. Yeah, these are three other examples. There are many others out there that are important to consider if you are a teacher, if you're an educator, if you work with young children, with teenagers, or even with adults. Learning in groups, cooperative learning is important, and technology now has made it possible for students to do this, in a more interesting, in a more interesting way. They can collaborate in the classroom, they can collaborate outside the classroom, and tools are available for us to facilitate the idea that students can work together in groups and learn more as a result. Authentic learning is also another important idea. Yes, what students learn in the classroom is important, doing school is important, but on the other hand, doing life is also important. Doing life means doing things that reflect how people actually use language outside the classroom. So authentic learning becomes important, and there's a lot of instances where authentic materials can be brought into the classroom. And finally, another important idea is flipped learning. Now, flipped learning is wonderful. It can help your students to come prepared before they are in your lesson, so that you can make use of your classroom time for a more in-depth discussion about the content of your teaching. So these are 6 ideas that I think are very important when we use technology in the classroom, in language teaching, or in any other kind of teaching. There's this guy who is very good. He wrote a book called Practical Pedagogy. And there's something that he wrote that got me interested. He says, we need to focus on pedagogy and not technology. We need to focus more pedagogy, but not technology. I would like to disagree slightly with him. I think both are important. So to improve education, I think we need to focus on both pedagogy and technology. In particular today, technology actually can be a very important agent of change in terms of the way we do things in the classroom. So the use of technology becomes important, but it has to be associated, it has to be based on a very strong pedagogical basis. My question again to you, audience, teachers out there. So if you use technology in this way, by keeping in mind all the wonderful theories of education, general theories of education, like motivation, like authentic learning, like flipped learning, like group learning, and things like that, can technology used in this way improve second language proficiency? Yes, no, or maybe. Please use the chat box again. Just record your answer, A, B, or C. Pak Jati later will report the results to you. Okay, we're now ready to move on to the last point that I want to get across, that I want to share with you today. The last point is about, let me see, I can't see my screen now. Okay, it's about the use of technology, but now this is very unique because we are all language teachers, because we are eventually interested in helping our students improve on their English situation where teachers use technology and their use is firmly informed by strong second language learning theories. I have 3 things here that I want to share with you in terms of L2 learning theories. When you talk about L2 learning theories, you need to include at least 3 things. There may be more out there, but these 3 things will have to be there. If your interest is helping your students to improve on their English language proficiency, then point number 1 is, to what extent have you provided your students with sufficient language nutrition? That's point number 1. Point number 2, to what extent you have helped students in processing the language that they hear, that they read on a regular basis. And finally, to what extent you have been supporting your students in using the language for communication. So all these 3 ideas are again related to language learning. What is language nutrition? In brief, this is an example of language nutrition. The English language that you hear, the English language that you read on a daily basis, that to me is language nutrition. Some of you may ask, well, in the classroom, the students also have a lot of nutrition. The students read course books. The students learn from course books. The students hear the teachers speaking the language in the classroom. My response to that is yes, the students get some nutrition, but not enough. Language learning requires that the students receive a lot of language nutrition. The kind of rich and authentic language that shows the students how the language is used for a variety of situations, in a variety of situations for a variety of purposes. So reading will be one great source of language nutrition. What I have here is a commercial publisher called X Reading. What they do is they make graded reading materials available online. Unfortunately, it's not free. You have to pay a little bit. If you're interested, I can tell you more about this. But this is in line with the movement now, with the interest of the majority of our students who want to do things using their mobile gadget or using their computers and things like that. Movies, video materials, YouTube materials, all these things are becoming very interesting, and this is part of the rich language nutrition that we need to expose our students on a regular basis. Okay, do I have any evidence that this nutrition, this extra rich nutrition is actually useful for language learning? Yes. Now here is an example. There was a study that was conducted by Dressman and Sabuai a few years ago. Very interesting. It says that many of the most successful English language learners in Morocco, they said that they have learned 70 to 85% of their English by going online or by watching satellite TV. I think you know the answer. I think that is because they have a lot of nutrition, they have a lot of language nutrition by watching or by reading things online.
Sorry to interrupt, Pak Willy.
Yes,
can you go faster? Yes, it is about the time. Okay,
yes,
thank you.
1 minute, Pak.
Sure,
give me
please
1 minute. I'm almost done.
Okay, sure. Thank you, Pak Willy.
So very quickly, here are some examples of successful English language learners. They are still young, but their English language proficiency is in the C1 or IELTS 7 and above. So these are just some pictures of young students that I know whose English language proficiency is very good, and they learn the language from receiving a lot of language nutrition. Point number 2 is about language processing. Yes, nutrition is good, language nutrition is good, but it's the teacher's job to make sure that the language nutrition follows very important principles. It has to be interesting, it has to be comprehensible. So 2 things, the language nutrition will have to be very interesting, will have to be very comprehensible as well. And point number 2, you need to teach your students how to notice the language features. Very simple. You just need to tell the students from time to time, when you read, first enjoy the content, and secondly, stop for a while, stop and think, pay attention to the way the information is presented in the English language. And finally, the last point is what I've called the again and again method. People have to do it again and again and again on a daily basis, on a weekly basis, on a monthly basis. Nothing can substitute for a lot of repetition, a lot of encounters of the language. Now, these are 3 books that I would like to recommend to you. Please take a quick look. Now, these books all discuss the kind of language processing that is needed for students to successfully acquire the language. Okay, language use, but another 30 seconds and I'm done, but.
Okay, please go ahead.
Yes.
Are you done?
Yes.
Thank you.
Almost done. Almost.
Okay, please, one more minute.
Yes.
Please, one more minute, Padri. Okay, sure, go ahead.
Okay, language use, yeah. Okay, there is one big principle that I would like us to remember. When it comes to language use, just remember this very important principle. Let me begin with the first one. People learn to read by reading, okay? Regularly. Point number 2, people learn to speak by speaking, and you can continue on and on. People learn to listen by listening, and people learn to write by writing a lot. So language use becomes very important, because if you do it again and again, if you do it regularly on a daily basis, then your fluency in the language will improve, your ability to speak with a higher degree of accuracy also improves, and you will also be able to use a wider range of language grammatical features. Question to you. If you use technology and your use of technology is firmly based on second language learning theories, do you think you'll be able to help your students improve on the English language proficiency? Your answer again, please. Yes, no, or maybe. I'm now at the end of my presentation. I have presented to you 3 points. The use of technology with very minimal theory, which is not a bad thing. Number 2, the use of technology which is informed by good theories of education. It's a good thing. And number 3, the use of technology that is fully informed by second language learning theories. This one is the takeaway from my presentation today. I would like you to fill in the blank for me and send your answer through the chat box. Again, Pak Ajati will compile the answers for me. People learn to use technology for language teaching by blah, blah, and blah. If you get the answer right, Pak Suseno will give you a nice present at the end. You will get your certificate and you can go home.
Are you done? Thank you.
Yes, this is my last slide. Free resources